Chapter 4. The Spendings of Fancy. Facts Answer with Sneers. For the next 2 days, Carrie allowed herself the highest and wildest dreams. Her imagination ran freely. She imagined many special rights and fun which would fit better a girl born rich. In her mind, she spent her small salary of $4.50 a week very easily and with a light hand. As she sat in her rocking chair on those evenings before bed, looking out at the nice, lighted street, this money seemed enough to open the way to every joy and every small pretty thing a woman's heart could want. "I'm going to have a great time," she thought. Her sister Minnie knew nothing about these wild dreams, although in Carrie's mind they used up all the pleasures in the world. Minnie was too busy scrubbing the kitchen woodwork and thinking how to make Sunday dinner from 80 cents. When Carrie came home, excited by her first success and ready, even though she was tired, to talk about all that had happened, Minnie only smiled a little, asked if she would have to spend any money on car fare, and then went back to her work. Carrie had not thought about car fare before, and the idea did not change her happy mood for long. She was ready to count like this, to take one small sum away from another without really feeling that she had less. In this way, she stayed cheerful. When Hansen came home at 7 o'clock, he was a little cross, as he usually was before supper. He did not show this so much by what he said, but by his serious face and the silent way he walked around. He had a pair of yellow carpet slippers he liked to wear, and he put them on as soon as he took off his heavy shoes. Then he washed his face with strong soap until it shone red. This was all he did to get ready for the evening meal. After that, he took his evening paper and read quietly. For a young man, this was a rather sad and heavy way to be, and it influenced Carrie. It also influenced the whole feeling in the flat, as such things usually do. It made his wife quiet and careful, always trying to avoid answers that might lead to cold or short remarks from him. But when Carrie said she had found work, even Hansen became a little brighter. "You didn't waste any time, did you?" he said, smiling a little. "No," answered Carrie with a bit of pride. He asked 1 or 2 more questions, then turned to play with the baby, and said no more about it until Minnie spoke again at the table. Still, Carrie did not let herself fall down to the simple, everyday level of thought in the flat. "It seems to be such a big company," she said once. "Very big plate glass windows and lots of clerks. The man I saw said they hire a great many people." "It's not very hard to get work now," said Hansen. "Not if you look right." Under the gentle warmth of Carrie's good mood and her husband's short, somewhat friendly speech, Minnie began to tell Carrie about some famous sights that didn't cost anything. "You'd like Michigan Avenue," Minnie said. "There are such beautiful houses there. It's a very fine street." "Where is H.R. Jacobs?" Carrie suddenly asked, naming one of the cheap theaters that showed melodramas. "Oh, it's not very far from here," said Minnie. "It's on Halsted Street, up that way." "Oh, I'd like to go there. I crossed Halsted Street today, didn't I?" At these words, the natural answer was delayed for a moment. Thoughts are strange things. They spread quickly. When Carrie talked about going to the theater, both Hansen and Minnie had a silent feeling of disapproval. For them, anything that cost money in this way was not a good idea. These silent feelings changed the air at the table a little. "Yes," Minnie answered. But Carrie could feel that going to the theater did not have much support here. The subject was dropped until later, when Hansen, done with his meal, took his paper and went into the front room. When the sisters were alone, they began to talk more freely while washing the dishes. Sometimes Carrie broke the silence by humming a song. "I'd like to walk up and see Halsted Street, if it's not too far," said Carrie after a while. Why don't we go to the theater tonight? Oh, I don't think Sven would like to go tonight, said Minnie. He has to get up so early. He wouldn't mind. He'd enjoy it, Carrie said. No, he doesn't go very often, Minnie replied. Well, I'd like to go, Carrie went on. Let's you and me go. Minnie thought for some time not about whether she wanted to go, because inside herself she already knew the answer was no, but about how to turn Carrie's thoughts to something else. We'll go some other time, she said finally, not knowing any better way to escape. Carrie quickly felt the real reason for this. I have some money, she said. You can come with me. Minnie shook her head. He could come too, Carrie suggested, meaning Hansen. No, said Minnie softly, making more noise with the dishes so she did not have to talk. He wouldn't. It had been several years since Minnie had seen Carrie, and in that time, Carrie's character had changed a little. She was naturally shy in anything that had to do with her own success, especially when she had no money or power. But her desire for fun was very strong. It was so strong that it was the one thing she would speak up for, even when she stayed quiet about everything else. Ask him, Carrie pleaded softly. Minnie was thinking how helpful Carrie's board money would be. It would pay the rent and make it easier to talk with Hansen about spending a little. But if Carrie started going out for fun right away, there would be trouble. Unless Carrie accepted a serious, hard-working life and understood that there was little room for pleasure, how would her coming to the city help them? These thoughts did not come from a cold or mean heart. They were the serious ideas of a woman who always adjusted herself, without much complaint, to the life that her and her husband's work could provide. At last, she gave in enough to ask Hansen. She did it without any real wish that he would say yes. Carrie wants us to go to the theater, she said. Looking into the front room, Hansen looked up from his paper. Husband and wife exchanged a quiet look, which clearly meant, this is not what we planned. I don't care to go, he said. What does she want to see? H.R. Jacobs, said Minnie. He looked back at his paper and shook his head. When Carrie saw their reaction, she understood their way of life even better. It weighed on her, but she did not yet feel strong enough to fight against it. I think I'll go downstairs and stand at the bottom of the stairs, she said later. Minnie did not object, and Carrie put on her hat and went down. Where did Carrie go? Hansen asked when he heard the door close. She said she was going down to the foot of the stairs, said Minnie. I think she just wants to look out for a while. She ought not to be thinking about spending her money on theaters already, don't you think? He asked. She's just curious, I guess, Minnie answered softly. Everything is so new to her. I don't know, said Hansen, going over to the baby, a small wrinkle on his forehead. He was thinking about a long life of vanity and useless spending that a young girl might choose, and wondering how Carrie could think about such a life when she had so little money yet. On Saturday, Carrie went out alone, first toward the river, which interested her, and then back along Jackson Street. At that time, Jackson Street had many pretty houses and lawns, which later caused the city to turn it into a boulevard. She noticed all the signs of wealth, although probably no person on the street had more than $100,000. She was glad to be away from the flat, because she already felt it was a narrow, boring place, and that joy and excitement were somewhere else. Her thoughts were now more open and free. She also began to think about where Dreiser might be. She was not sure if he would still come on Monday night as he had said. The idea worried her a little, but she also secretly hoped that he might. On Monday morning, she got up early and prepared for work. She wore an old shirtwaist of blue cotton with small dots, a light brown serge skirt that was a bit faded, and a small straw hat she had worn all summer in Columbia City. Her shoes were old, and her necktie was crumpled and flat from long use. Except for her face, her features were a bit more regular and gentle than average. She looked like an ordinary shop girl. Her face gave her a sweet, quiet, and pleasant look. It is not easy to wake up early when you are used to sleeping until 7 or 8, as Carrie was at home. She got a little idea of Hanson's life when, half asleep, she looked out into the dining room at 6 o'clock and saw him finishing his breakfast in silence. By the time she was dressed, he was gone. She, Minnie, and the baby ate together. The baby was just old enough to sit in a high chair and knock the dishes with a spoon. Carrie's spirits were very low now, facing the start of strange and difficult work. The ashes of her beautiful dreams were left, though even in the ashes there were still a few small red coals of hope. She was so nervous that she ate in silence, thinking over what the shoe company would be like, what the work would be, and how her employers would act. She felt, without any clear image, that she would meet the powerful owners, and that she would be working in a place where serious, well-dressed men walked about. "Well, good luck," said Minnie when Carrie was ready to go. They had decided it was best for her to walk, at least that first morning, to see if she could do it every day. 60 cents a week for car fare was a big number in their situation. "I'll tell you how it goes tonight," said Carrie. Once outside in the sunshine, with workers walking in both directions, streetcars passing with small clerks and factory helpers hanging onto the rails, and men and women coming out of houses and passing through the neighborhood, Carrie felt a little better. In the bright light of morning, under the wide blue sky and a fresh wind, fears, except the very worst, cannot stay long. In the night or in dark rooms, worries and doubts grow strong, but out in the sunlight, they are silent for a time. Carrie walked straight until she crossed the river, then turned into Fifth Avenue. In that part, the street was like a stone canyon, with high brownstone and red brick buildings on each side. The big windows shone clean. More and more trucks rumbled along. Men and women, boys and girls moved in all directions. She met girls her own age who looked at her as if they were better than she was, perhaps because she looked shy and inexperienced. Carrie wondered at the size and power of this life. She began to feel how important it was to know things in order to do anything here. Fear of her own lack of skill grew in her. She thought, "I won't know how. I won't be fast enough." Hadn't all the other places refused her because she did not know something? She imagined that she would be shouted at, treated badly, and then thrown out of the job. With weak knees and a tight feeling in her chest, she came to the big shoe company at Adams and Fifth Avenue and went into the elevator. When she stepped out on the 4th floor, there was no one to see. Only long lanes of boxes piled up to the ceiling. She stood there, very frightened, waiting. Soon Mr. Brown came. He did not seem to recognize her. "What do you want?" he asked. "You told me to come this morning to ask about the work," she began. "Oh," he said, cutting her off. "Yes, what's your name?" "Carrie Meeber." "Yes," he said. "Come with me." He led her through dark lanes between the boxes, which smelled of new shoes, until they reached an iron door into the factory itself. Inside was a big room with a low ceiling, full of noisy machines. They clacked and rattled. And men in white shirts and blue aprons worked at them. Carrie followed Mr. Brown shyly through the lines of moving machines, looking straight ahead, her face red with embarrassment. They went to a far corner and took another elevator to the 6th floor. There, in a room full of machines and workbenches, Mr. Brown called a foreman over. "This is the girl," he said. Then to Carrie, "Go with him." He went back, and Carrie followed her new boss to a small desk in the corner, which he used as his office space. "You've never done work like this before, have you?" he asked in a firm, slightly annoyed voice. "No, sir," she said. He looked as if it bothered him to deal with such an inexperienced girl, but he wrote down her name and then took her over to a line of girls sitting on stools in front of machines. Each machine made small, regular movements. He put his hand on the shoulder of one of the girls who was punching eye holes in a piece of leather. "You," he said, "show this girl how to do your work. When you're finished, come to me." The girl stood up at once and let Carrie sit down. "It's not hard," she said, bending over the machine. "You just take this, like this, fasten it with this clamp, and start the machine." She showed with her hands exactly what to do. She fixed the leather piece, which would become the right half of a man's shoe upper, under the small metal clamps, and pushed a steel rod at the side. The machine jumped into action, punching holes quickly with sharp clicks. Little round pieces of leather fell away, leaving the holes for the laces. After Carrie had watched several times, the girl let her do it alone. When the girl saw that Carrie did the work fairly well, she went back to her own place. The pieces of leather came from the girl on Carrie's right and went on to the girl on her left. Carrie saw right away that she needed to keep a good speed. If she worked too slowly, the pieces would pile up in front of her, and the girls after her would have to wait. She had no time to look around and bent over her task, nervous and intense. The girls on each side understood her problem and tried to help by working a little slower themselves. For a long time, she worked without stopping, losing herself a little in the simple movement of the machine and her own fear. She noticed that the room was not very bright. The air smelled strongly of new leather, but that did not bother her too much yet. What did bother her were the eyes she felt on her. She was afraid she was not working fast enough. Once, while she was having trouble with the clamp after making a small mistake, a big hand suddenly appeared and fixed it for her. It was the foreman. Her heart beat so hard that she could hardly see. "Start your machine," he said. "Start it. Don't keep the line waiting." This woke her up from her fear, and she went on again, hardly breathing until he moved away. Then she let out a long breath. As the morning passed, the room grew hotter. Carrie wanted fresh air and a drink of water, but she did not dare to leave her place. The stool had no back or footrest, and she began to feel uncomfortable and stiff. Soon her back started to ache. She moved from one position to another, but nothing helped for long. "You'd better stand up," said the girl on her right kindly, without any special introduction. "They don't care." "Thank you. I think I will," said Carrie. She stood up and worked like that for a while, but it was harder. Her neck and shoulders hurt from bending over. The feeling of the place slowly got into her. She didn't dare to look around openly, but she heard bits of talk over the noise of the machines and saw a few things out of the corner of her eye. "Did you see Harry last night?" asked the girl on her left. "No." "You should have seen his tie. Gee, what a sight he was." "Shh," said the other girl, bending over. The first girl suddenly made a serious face. The foreman was moving slowly along the line. watching everyone work. As soon as he passed, the talk started again. "Say," began the girl on Carrie's left. "Guess what he said?" "I don't know." "He said he saw us with Eddie Harris at Martin's last night." "No!" Both girls giggled. A young man with light tan hair, badly in need of a haircut, came shuffling between the machines with a basket of leather under one arm. When he came near, he reached out and grabbed one girl jokingly under the arm. "Aw, let me alone," she cried, angry. "You fool." He only grinned. "Rebber," he shouted back when she looked after him. There was nothing polite or charming about him. Carrie now could hardly sit still. Her legs were tired. She wanted to stretch. Will noon never come? She thought. It felt as if she had worked all day. She was not hungry, just weak and very thirsty. Her eyes were tired from staring at the place where the punch came down on the leather. The girl on her right saw how much she moved around and felt sorry. Carrie was trying too hard. The work really needed less effort of mind and body. But there was nothing anyone could do. The shoe uppers kept coming. Her wrists began to ache, then her fingers. Later it seemed to her that her whole body was one large, tired muscle, locked in one position and forced to make the same small movement over and over. As time went on, the work became more and more unpleasant. At last, it almost made her sick. When she thought she could not stand it another minute, a dull bell rang somewhere down the elevator shaft. In a moment, the room changed. A wave of movement and talking began. All the girls left their stools and hurried into another room. Men came in from a side department. The wheels of the machines began to slow. The sharp whirring dropped to a softer sound and then stopped. The sudden quiet felt strange. Carrie stood up and went to look for her lunchbox. She felt stiff, a little dizzy, and very thirsty. On her way to the small cloakroom, where all the coats and lunches were kept, she met the foreman again. He stared at her for a moment. "Start your machine," he said. "Start it. Don't keep the line waiting." This woke her up from her fear, and she went on again, hardly breathing until he moved away. Then she let out a long breath. As the morning passed, the room grew hotter. Carrie wanted fresh air and a drink of water, but she did not dare to leave her place. The stool had no back or footrest, and she began to feel uncomfortable and stiff. Soon her back started to ache. She moved from one position to another, but nothing helped for long. "You'd better stand up," said the girl on her right kindly, without any special introduction. "They don't care." "Thank you. I think I will," said Carrie. She stood up and worked like that for a while, but it was harder. Her neck and shoulders hurt from bending over. The feeling of the place slowly got into her. She didn't dare to look around openly, but she heard bits of talk over the noise of the machines and saw a few things out of the corner of her eye. "Did you see Harry last night?" asked the girl on her left. "No." "You should have seen his tie. Gee, what a sight he was." "Shh," said the other girl, bending over. The first girl suddenly made a serious face. The foreman was moving slowly along the line, watching everyone work. As soon as he passed, the talk started again. "Say," began the girl on Carrie's left. "Guess what he said?" "I don't know." "He said he saw us with Eddie Harris at Martin's last night." "No!" Both girls giggled. A young man with light tan hair, badly in need of a haircut, came shuffling between the machines with a basket of leather under one arm. When he came near, he reached out and grabbed one girl jokingly under the arm. "Aw, let me alone," she cried, angry. "You fool." He only grinned. "Rebber," he shouted back when she looked after him. There was nothing polite or charming about him. Carrie now could hardly sit still. Her legs were tired. She wanted to stretch. Will noon never come? She thought. It felt as if she had worked all day. She was not hungry, just weak and very thirsty. Her eyes were tired from staring at the place where the punch came down on the leather. The girl on her right saw how much she moved around and felt sorry. Carrie was trying too hard. The work really needed less effort of mind and body, but there was nothing anyone could do. The shoe uppers kept coming. Her wrists began to ache, then her fingers. Later it seemed to her that her whole body was one large, tired muscle, locked in one position and forced to make the same small movement over and over. As time went on, the work became more and more unpleasant. At last, it almost made her sick. When she thought she could not stand it another minute, a dull bell rang somewhere down the elevator shaft. In a moment, the room changed. A wave of movement and talking began. All the girls left their stools and hurried into another room. Men came in from a side department. The wheels of the machines began to slow. The sharp whirring dropped to a softer sound and then stopped. The sudden quiet felt strange. Carrie stood up and went to look for her lunchbox. She felt stiff, a little dizzy, and very thirsty. On her way to the small cloakroom, where all the coats and lunches were kept, she met the foreman again. He stared at her for a moment. As she walked down the hall, after getting her hat, a young machine hand, interested by her looks, made a bold joke. "Hey, Maggie," he called. "If you wait, I'll walk with you." The words were clearly meant for her, but she did not turn her head. In the crowded elevator, another dusty young man stared at her and made a silly face, trying to impress her. Outside, a worker waiting for a friend saw her and grinned. "You're not going my way, are you?" he called in a joking tone. Carrie turned toward the west with a quiet, tired heart. At the corner, she could see through the big, clean window the little desk where she had first asked for a job. The crowds were still rushing by with a strong, busy energy. She felt one small bit of relief, but only because she was finally leaving the place. She felt ashamed when well-dressed girls passed her. She felt like someone who should be treated better than this. Inside, her heart refused to accept the life she had just seen. Chapter V. A glittering night flower. The use of a name. Dreiser did not visit Carrie that evening. After he got her letter, he put all thoughts of her aside for a while and went around the city, having what he thought was a fun, busy time. On this evening, he ate dinner at Rector's, a well-known restaurant in a basement at Clark and Monroe Streets. After that, he went to Fitzgerald and Moy's, a popular bar on Adden Street. Across from the big federal building, there he leaned on the beautiful bar, drank a glass of plain whiskey, and bought 2 cigars. He lit one of them. For him, this was part of high life, a little piece of the rich, exciting life he imagined. Dreiser was not a heavy drinker. He was not really a rich man. He simply wanted the best things as he understood them, and places like these were part of that dream. Rector's, with its shiny marble walls and floor, its many lights, its beautiful dishes and silver, and especially its reputation as a place for actors and professional men, seemed like the right place for a successful man. He loved nice clothes, good food, and the company of men who were important and successful. When he ate there, it gave him great pleasure to know that Joseph Jefferson, a famous actor, often came to the same restaurant, or that Henry E. Dixie, another famous performer of that time, was sitting only a few tables away. At Rector's, he could always enjoy this feeling because politicians, businessmen, actors, and rich young men often came there. They ate and drank while talking in a loud, lively way. "That's so-and-so over there," men would say to each other, especially those who were not yet rich but hoped to be one day. Dining there was a sign of success to them. "You don't say so," the other would answer. "Yes, didn't you know? He's the manager of the Grand Opera House." When Drouet heard such things, he sat up straighter and ate with even more pleasure. If he was already vain, it made him more so. If he was already ambitious, it made him dream more. Someday he wanted to show a big roll of money too. For now, at least he could eat where those men ate. His liking for Fitzgerald and Moy's Bar on Adams Street came from the same feeling. It was a very fancy saloon for Chicago at that time. Like Rector's, it was filled with bright electric lights hanging from beautiful chandeliers. The floor had colorful tiles. The walls were made of dark, polished wood that reflected the light, mixed with decorated plaster that made the place look rich and elegant. The long bar was full of lights and shiny wood. The shelves held colorful bottles and cut glass. It was truly a swell saloon, with fancy drake screens, expensive wines, and one of the best selections of drinks in the country. Drouet had a small but useful sense of humor and could tell a good story when needed. He could talk about horse races with Hurstwood, tell funny or interesting stories about himself and his adventures with women, and report how business was going in the cities he visited. In this way, he was almost always pleasant company. On this evening, he was in especially good spirits. His business report to the company had been praised, his new samples were chosen, and his next 6-week trip was planned. "Why, hello, Charlie, old man," said Hurstwood when Drouet came in about 8 o'clock. "How's it going?" The bar was busy and crowded. Drouet shook his hand, his face full of good humor, and they walked over toward the bar. "Oh, just fine," said Drouet. "I haven't seen you for 6 weeks. When did you get in?" asked Hurstwood. "Friday," said Drouet. "I had a great trip." "Glad to hear it," said Hurstwood. His dark eyes warmed a little, and for a moment he looked less cold and formal than usual. "What are you going to drink?" he added, as the bartender in a clean white jacket and tie leaned forward to serve them. "Old Pepper," said Drouet, naming a kind of whiskey. "A little of the same for me," said Hurstwood. "How long are you staying in town this time?" asked Hurstwood. "Only until Wednesday. Then I'm going up to St. Paul." "George Evans was in here Saturday. He said he saw you in Milwaukee last week," said Hurstwood. "Yes, I saw George," answered Drouet. "He's a great fellow, isn't he? We had a good time there." The bartender put the glasses and bottle in front of them. They poured their drinks as they talked. Drouet filled his glass about 1/3 full of whiskey, as was usual, and Hurstwood poured only a little whiskey and added seltzer water. "What's happened to Carrie?" asked Hurstwood. "I haven't seen him around for 2 weeks." "They say he's sick," said Drouet. "He's a gouty old fellow." "He's made a lot of money, though, hasn't he?" said Hurstwood. "Yes, piles of it," said Drouet. "He won't live much longer. He almost never comes to the office now." "He has only one son, doesn't he?" asked Hurstwood. "Yes, and he's a fast one," laughed Drouet. "I guess he still can't hurt the business much with the other partners there," said Hurstwood. "No, I don't think he can damage it any," said Drouet. Hurstwood stood there with his coat open and his thumbs in his pockets. The light on his jewelry and rings made them shine clearly. He looked like a man who enjoyed comfort and style. To someone who does not like to drink and who has a more serious way of thinking, such a bright, noisy room might seem strange and empty. It might look like a joke about life. Men come there like moths to a light. The talk is light and simple, It is not the kind of place for deep plans or serious politics. People who wanted to plan something secret would probably choose a private room, not a crowded bar. Also, most men there are not really thirsty. They are not driven by a strong need for alcohol. Still, the truth is that men come here, talk here, stand close together here. There must be a reason. Perhaps many mixed wishes and vague desires create this strange social place. If those desires didn't exist, the place would not exist either. Dreiser was drawn there partly because he wanted pleasure, and partly because he wanted to be seen with important men. Many of the men he met there came because they wanted, even if they didn't fully understand it, the company, the bright lights, and the mood of the place. In a way, it might even be a sign of a better kind of social life. What they looked for there, although physical and emotional, was not truly evil. There is nothing bad in looking at a beautifully decorated room. The worst effect it might have is to make people want to live in the same rich way. But that would be more the fault of the person's ambition than of the decorations. If the fancy room makes poor men want to dress like the rich, that is not the fault of the wood or the lights. It is just how some minds work. If you took away the one thing people criticize most, the alcohol, there would be nothing left to blame. Most people would praise the beauty and excitement that remained. The happy way people look at modern, fancy restaurants is proof of this. Still, here is the fact. A bright room, well-dressed men looking for pleasure, ... Small, selfish conversations, thoughts that jump from subject to subject without purpose. It is the love of light, show, and pretty things that makes this place what it is. To someone outside in the dark, under the calm night sky and stars, the bar might look like a strange, glowing flower in the night. A shiny, sweet-smelling flower that draws insects, feeds them, and is filled with them. "See that fellow coming in there?" said Hurstwood, looking toward the door. A man in a top hat and long black coat had just entered. His round cheeks were red, as if he had eaten very well. "Where?" asked Dreiser, looking around. "There," said Hurstwood, moving his eyes slightly. "The man with the silk hat." "Oh, yes," said Dreiser, now pretending that he had not noticed before. "Who is he?" "That's Jules Wallace, the spiritualist," said Hurstwood. Dreiser watched him with interest. "He doesn't look much like a man who talks with spirits, does he?" said Dreiser. "Oh, well, I don't know," answered Hurstwood. "He has plenty of money anyway." A small light of amusement passed through his eyes. "I don't believe much in those things. Do you?" asked Dreiser. "Well, you never know," said Hurstwood. "Maybe there's something in it. I wouldn't bother with it myself, though. By the way," he added, "are you going anywhere tonight?" "The Hole in the Ground," said Dreiser, naming a popular comedy show of that time. "Well, you'd better go," said Hurstwood. "It's already 8:30. He took out his watch and looked at it. The crowd in the bar was already getting smaller. Some men were going to the theater, some to their clubs, and some to what was, for many of them, the most interesting pleasure of all: meeting women. "Yes, I should go," said Dreiser. "Come back after the show. I have something I want to show you," said Hurstwood. "Sure," said Dreiser, pleased. "You don't have anything else planned tonight?" asked Hurstwood. "Not a thing," said Dreiser. "Well, come back then," said Hurstwood. "I met a little peach on the train Friday," said Druitt as he was leaving, trying to sound important. "By George, that's right. I must go call on her before I leave town." "Oh, forget her," said Hurstwood. "Say, she was a little beauty, really," went on Druitt in a secret, proud tone, trying to impress his friend. 12 o'clock, said Hurstwood, reminding him of the time. "That's right," said Druitt, going out. So, Carrie's name was used lightly and carelessly in one of the most bright and cheerful places in the city, while she herself, the tired little worker, was sitting far away, feeling sad about her small life and the narrow path that lay in front of her. A path that was already part of her fate, even if she did not yet know it.